Okay, family, we are live. Let's start off with a little bit of one of my favorite little songs here while everyone's coming in here. Um, Thanks for showing up there, family, and we're going to continue part two here shortly. Okay, fam. Just wanted to get a little introduction music. The unbelievable Mr. John Coltrane there, spiritual. Welcome. And we will continue part two briefly from what we presented last time there. Put a one in the chat, make sure everyone can hear me. Should be loud and clear here now. We have to apologize last time for the technical issues. We will, I managed to fix the technical problems there. And I just want to make sure that I'm loud and clear now. Okay, great. Thanks, Charles. Welcome. All right, perfect. Okay. Yeah, apologize for the technical issues last time, family. You know, it's been a while and didn't know how to fix that issue, but you know, we got that solved. So we will recap because I know I presented a few videos and you guys could not hear those videos. So we will go over those briefly, recap those videos again because it's important that everyone hear what's being said in those videos. And then we're going to briefly complete our analysis of our position relative to Africans. And with the, you know, just the, you know, I've just been hearing a lot of the disrespect about us here, Americans here with no culture and you know, so basically my grandmother spoke to me, do something, you know, so set the record straight, you know. Welcome, Chris. So and we're gonna just briefly continue that, but we're gonna put the final nail in the coffin and move on because you know our energy and focus should be on you know connecting with our maternal and paternal ancestors and you know confirming you know the inheritance, whether or not they left us an inheritance in the form of land, etc. Right? So that's where our focus should be, you know. So and you know there's a lot of great people out there. There's been, you know, I've been off for 3 years because I've been, you know, on a battlefield there, and but you know a lot of people out there are you know made major contributions, you know. So honors to all of them out there. They know who they are, and so we will first continue. Now remember how what we did last time. We went over what the definition of culture, the root word of culture, the root meaning, because that's what we deal with, the root meaning of words, the etymology of words. So let's go back, let's recap again on the definition of culture so we get grounded and we will never fall victim to any witches or warlocks when it comes to the root meaning of words, right? When you know the root meaning of words, you know, it's very difficult for you to fall victim to a spell, right? So let me share my screen first of all. Got to do that. Share my screen. Welcome, Janine. Share screen. Entire screen. There we go. So everyone can see there. All right, there we go. Okay. All right, so now let's go back over that definition again here. Okay, so here the root meaning of the word culture. Okay, mid 15th century, the tilling of land, act of preparing the earth for crops. From Latin cultura, a cultivating, agriculture. You know, figuratively, care, culture, and honoring. To tend, till, cultivate. Right? The cultivation or rearing of crops. So basically, we're talking about land ownership. When you own land, then you can till your land, you can cultivate crops, and that's the foundation of civilization. So once we evolved out of the hunter-gatherer phase, then we elevated to such a level to where we had the science and the ability to settle in one particular area and benefit from the earth, where it can feed us, it can heal us, etc. Right? So that's culture. So, but you need land, and you need to be able to control the land and benefit from the land, right? So, of course, we have all of that. Now, yes, we've been severed and cut off from that, right? Compared to our ancestors, but it's still there. So, and we're gonna, get into a little bit about that there. But it's not our. We understand that people outside of America, hell, even the majority of Americans, we've been, miseducated, dumbed down, um, and there's been this attempt to separate us from the past, our ancestors, the total cut severance and cutting off that umbilical cord that was connected to our ancestors. And many of these youngsters have no idea how things were back in the past, right? So, but it's our responsibility, especially those who were born in the, 40s, 50s, and 60s. We're the last front, the last, um, you know, regiment to pass this knowledge down to the young people, right? So we need to start talking and telling these stories of our grandparents and their parents and so forth, and the importance of that there. Um, if we don't, because we understand there's a war against us. They depleted our numbers compared to 100 years ago, right? And if they just open the floodgates to bring all these other nationalities amongst us. All that's in the book, family. It's in the book Deuteronomy, the rise and the fall. And so part of the fall, the curses, is when these nations will come amongst us and rise above us in our own nation. And that's what's happening, right? So we need to get our act together before we're totally extinct and totally replaced, because that's what's happening. Um, but we need to talk about it and get it out there so we know that there's a problem and that there's something we have to do something about it with a solution. But the first thing is to never let anyone disrespect your family, your grandparents, your great grandparents, on down the line. There's so much we can take, but when they just go on, and they want to poke the bear's going to go out and bite. Take a little chomp out of them now as a warning, right? So now the videos you could not hear, since we know what culture is. Culture is the landowner. Culture is the ancient farmer. That's culture. And once you achieve that, then the human can elevate to create technology, patents that the world would benefit from, right? So, such as this here. Let me just show this real quick. This wasn't even part of my lesson plan map, but I'm gonna add this anyway here. Hold on one second. Where is it? Where is it? Just to show you here. I think it's in here, this folder. So once you have culture, then you're able to do incredible things. Now, just for an example, everyone taught in school all around the world that the Wright brothers were the ones to discover flight. It's not true. Before the Wright brothers, the first patent before them was Charles F. Page out of Louisiana. A landowner, farmer, but he was a brilliant man. Here's his land patent. I mean, not a land patent, technical patent there. So his patent for flight was before the Wright brothers. So when you have culture, you're able to do incredible things because you don't have to worry about food. Where you're going to get your next meal, so you don't have to worry about that because you mastered agricultural science, right? So then you could do other things to move civilization forward. And so here's this patent here. This application will file April 20. Let me blow this up here. I did this years ago. But I'm just gonna just to give an example of when you have culture, then you're able to go to the higher levels of creativity, right? So his application was filed April 24th, 1903. You can look it up. It was before the Wright brothers, okay? And so there's the figure there of his design, right? You see that inventor Charles F. Page there. We go down here. There's the other figures. This figure number 2, right? Here are the witnesses, right there. Specification of letters patent. Application filed April 24, 1903. Serial number 1, what is that? 54045, okay? And this is this, be it known that I, Charles F. Page, a citizen of the United States, residing at Pineville in the parish of Rapid, state of Louisiana, have invented certain new and useful improvements in airships. And I do hereby declare the following to be a full, clear, exact description of the invention, etc. Okay? So when you get these people disrespecting us, they don't know anything about us. So when you don't know anything, it's best to keep your mouth shut. But we understand that these people are actors and entertainers, and they're paid to get on these platforms and spew out emotional, just to get an emotional rise out of us, to go what? Viral. That's all it is. And since so many people have been doing it, and it's like, oh, okay, we can just keep disrespecting them, and they're not even doing anything about it. So, but that same guy, none of these people can show similar achievements or culture from their people over 100 plus years ago. So let's start here. I just wanted to show that there. So now let's get into the videos that we couldn't hear before, because that's going to lay the context of what we're talking about here. Okay. So as in my title, this guy Frank Zanu, right, going all around and he's saying all this disrespectful stuff, right? And so let's hear exactly what he said. Let's go to what he said here. Okay. Right here. So we can play this. You should be able to hear this.
African Americans in this country are the only groups. They have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them. But currently, there's not an African American culture.
Okay,
No, groups, they have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them. But currently, there's not an African American culture. No. Yes, there is. What is it? Name 2 value systems in the African American culture. Value system? Yes. Name 2 taboos in the African American culture system. Name 2 traditions, by the way, in the African American culture system. There is no value for freedom if you don't understand what it is. The concept of free. You have to have a foundation on which it would balance when you ask for it. Civil rights, they give it to you. You have no culture. Nancy, you've been here, born here. Why would you be surprised if I say African Americans don't have a culture? What, twerking? So,
hopefully everyone could hear that. Did everyone hear that? Play it again? Okay, Marlon, I'll play it again. We're going to play it again. Let's go back. Let's play it again.
Have no culture. It depends on who you meet, where you meet them. But currently, there's not an African American culture. No. Yes, there is. What is it? Name 2 value systems in the African American culture. Value system? Yes. Name 2 taboos in the African American culture system. Name 2 traditions, by the way, in the African American culture system. There is no value for freedom if you don't understand what it is. The concept of free. You have to have a foundation foundation on which it would balance when you ask for it. Civil rights, they give it to you. You have no culture. Nancy, you've been here, born here. Why would you be surprised if I say African Americans don't have a culture? For twerking? So, anything.
Yeah, that's I can't listen anymore of that, family. That I can't listen to any more of that there. But we hopefully you heard that. Um, okay, okay, could hear right. So now, so he said we have no culture twerking. This is an African from Dahomey, whatever. I think he's from Dahomey, you know, Benin, whatever. Talking this disrespectful crap. No value system. Now, let's back up. Because what did he say? He said African Americans don't have culture. Well, we agree with that. We agree with that because we're not African Americans. See, that's been the problem from the whole later phases of their plan for the takeover in 1988 when they used Jesse Jackson to promote the term. He didn't create it. He just promoted it. We know who the puppet masters in the background who created all of that. Because that term's only 38 years old. So it shows you the ignorance of him and other Africans who talk like that. Yes, we admit, we know that our image has been damaged compared to our grandparents, the situation they were in, the maturity level damaged. There's been a war on us, and it's still a war on us. We understand that. But when you don't know about people, especially to keep your mouth shut, but we know what these people are getting paid for. Now, so that's what he said there, right? So now, let's go to the before we move on. We're gonna go to the other videos. Now, this one here, because let's let what the Africans say about themselves. Let's show that. All right. Okay, here, this one, because this is the one no one could hear last. This is very important because this lays the foundation right here. What is that asking me this for? Come on. No thanks. Okay, you see the title? More than 500 million Africans have no birth certificates. So we're gonna move on.
Welcome to Business Africa, where you get the latest on the African continents due to beleaguered economic an investment of $3 billion. Kofi Ronaldo. Nissan, Volkswagen ultimate program is good news for the South over the past decade. Some 500 million people in the continent.
Started right here.
Some 500 million people in the continent do not have an official representation, reports the World Bank. 494 million of these people are in sub-Saharan Africa. World Bank has, however, dedicated a figure of $6 billion to initiate a major digital identification campaigns across the African continent.
What did it say there? 500 million Africans without what? An identity.
Flago and Hawa Suleiman Issa have the details. "500 people are without a birth certificate on the continent, according to the World Bank's latest reports. 494 million of these people are in sub-Saharan Africa. In a related development, UNICEF figures indicate that some 85 million children are not registered and do not have birth certificate. Analysts are therefore pointing that the situation reduces access to health, education, and financing services for a large part of the African population. As World Bank's desire for a change of this narrative increases, the institution pledges $6 billion for the identification of these children on the African continent. Further, the institution intends to build on the continent's digital identification and civil registration campaigns through the ID4D initiative, Hence, nearly $1 billion has already been injected in promoting digital identification in 23 countries in Africa. Experts believe these measures will improve financial inclusion, governance, regional integration, and the promotion of public investment in human capital. Right, we are analyzing this situation in Africa with El Haji Elion Diop, Commissioner for Economic Survey and Professor for International Economics at the Eco National Administrative School and Polytechnic in Dakar. Hello, sir, and welcome to the program.
Yes, hello, thank you for your invitation.
Monsieur Diouf, nous venons de le suivre dans le We are just seeing a World Bank report indicating that Africa has the lowest coverage rate in terms of birth identification. How do you analyze the direct impact of this on the African economy? Sur le développement économique des pays africains?
Yes, we have a really interesting problem that concerns all African leaders, if not all Africans. Even if we are not the only ones in the world, we are talking about 1 billion, but the 500 million are in Africa, so it is considerable. Do you realize if someone really doesn't have an identity, or if we don't get to know our populations, how do you expect to really understand the preferences of the populations there and the problems they face? Because they are invisible beings.
What did he just say? He said they are invisible beings. Invisible beings. No different than a band of apes. Apes don't have birth certificates or family records. But for some reason, they come over to America, they get infused with this kind of, they just got it, morph into something else and get disrespectful. An invisible being.
They are called invisible beings. This is a problem that has been around for quite some time, and even on our world in Africa. We do not have what is called property rights. If the state...
Boom. That's the key term. What did he just say? He said we do not have what's called property rights. They have no land, which means we just look at the definition of culture: tilling of the land, cultivate, agriculture, farming. They have no property rights, which means you have no culture. You have no culture. Let's see, where was that at there? So again, no family records, no vital records, no birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, land records, nothing. And according to the definition of culture, they're lacking that. So this the final video that you couldn't hear last time, because this is my advice to Africans. You got to worry about people who are coming into your nation disrespecting your babies and your children. Fix that first. You got a lot of problems, and we're not your problem. Okay, so let me show this video here. This is the one that you couldn't hear from last time. And these are the kind of issues in Africa you should be worried about, because this would never happen to us. Right here. Here's the so you have in China, family, you have content creators in China who go to Africa, and this is what they do to the children, and it's content. They blow up and they get very, very popular. This is very popular content in China, right? So take a look at this here, because this is disgusting.
我啥也不是。你谁呀？我就是大笨蛋。我是大笨蛋。
So he's speaking Chinese, telling her to repeat what he's saying. This is what he's saying to her. You to have her say that I'm retarded, and she just repeat what he says for his channels there, his social media. He's a Chinese influencer there. And so teaching them Chinese, so they'll say an expression in Chinese, and the expression is "I'm a black monster," and then the children will repeat it out, not understanding what the true meaning is. But this is what the Chinese are doing for their content on their social media platforms.
So in recent years, there has been a disturbing trend that has emerged on Chinese social media platforms. So for those of you who don't know, China's internet is totally separated from the rest of the world. In China, all foreign apps, all international apps that basically everyone else uses, apps like WhatsApp, YouTube, Google, any app that you can think of is completely blocked in China. They use their own versions of everything basically. So it goes without saying that these Chinese alternatives are extremely localized. They are mostly in Chinese and they cater exclusively to Chinese audiences. Now, the type of content I'll be dissecting today is a trend where Chinese content creators deliberately seek out the poorest communities in Africa. And once they are in these villages, they get the villagers to make all manner of content. So today I'm going to talk about a subgenre of this type of content that I find especially disturbing, something that I've been seeing for years now. These are videos that feature children, African children. So if you go on my YouTube channel, you are going to see that this topic is something that is very far from my niche, and it is something that I really don't want to talk about, but nobody has really been drawing attention to this problem. I know that the BBC has made a documentary about this before, but I don't know why nobody else has brought attention to it ever since. It is kept going, and honestly I don't even know why such content is popular in the first place. So since nobody is bringing attention to this unique content, I might as well just bite the bullet and talk about it. So because it is a very tough topic to dissect, and I don't want this video to be very long, so I'm going to make it. One is the borderline okay, not okay type of content, up to tier 5, where really somebody needs to be tracked down and arrested. So starting at tier 1, we are going to look at the genre of rage baiting, but with kids. Black kids, to be specific. There are two types of content that I want to talk about here. The first type are these rage baiting
I'm back, family. Sorry about that. I think looks like the we got cut off there. Hold on. We got cut off. Can you hear me? Put a one in the chat there. I think we got cut off. I'm back. Okay, right. Sorry about that. So, did everyone? Did you see the entire video? Did everyone see the entire Chinese abuse video? Let me know if you saw that video there. I don't know when I got cut off there. Was holding the baby. Okay, hold on. Let's see. Show a little bit more of it before we.
That is so difficult to address because these videos, they're not being posted on mainstream social media. They are being posted in a country where the social media platforms that
we get the point, family. We get the point here. So they got major issues in their own country, but they want to come over here and disrespect us. We know, we get the point. Chinese social media content individuals use African babies to make content by abusing them, and that's allowed. So that's what goes on, and they're not fixing those issues. So now we understand the meaning of culture. Culture deals with land ownership, agriculture, basically farming, right? That's culture. So, and we saw the other video about near close to 1 billion of Africans with no identity. They're invisible beings. They have no land records. They have no land, which means they have no culture. Okay, so they're not the farmer who can grow food and not worry about their next meal so they can elevate to higher levels. This is what they told us in that segment we just watched. Okay, so and you remember, family, in Minnesota, one of the Somali men was talking, and then he said that we don't know our fathers, and we don't so they try to put their situation on us, right? They're definitely misinformed, because when it comes to genealogical records, in particular us in America, we have the richest records compared to any other nation on the planet. Okay, so now Africans can only go on what they're told, right? And so we don't expect Frank Zanu and these other Africans to know deeply about us, because they're only going with the mainstream narrative, right? So but in their mind, the mainstream narrative, they think the ideal of an American would look like someone like Bill Clinton, and so they would attribute people who look like that to everything great in America, to being quote unquote a real American. But again, families, is what we're being the whoever controls the curriculum controls the minds of the youth. And we already know, with the issue of the Epstein files, with Ghislaine Maxwell's father was mainly responsible for what books were allowed in schools. Look, research her father. And so we already understand that these stories that were created, that people think certain people are in power, but they don't have any power. We understand all of that. So I'm going to show this here other video, and we're going to focus more on the contents of the video. We all know the story of Cabbage Patch entities, incubator babies, but we're going to actually focus on people, real people who are descendants of these people, and let's hear what they say. Because that's going to lay the foundation of who has family records that go back and who's really connected to being an American compared to those who just got here, right? And those who have no family history. So hold on one second here, family. We're going to show this here. Thanks.
あなたの腸に野生菌いるか調べてみませんか。カルビーさんが出している腸内フローラの
All silent films are lost forever. About 10,000 American silent films were produced, but only 2,700 of them still exist in some complete form.
Okay, but what we're going to do here, Fred, we're going to focus on the comments. I want us to focus on the comments here. Hold on a second.
Version of the Cabbage Patch Fairy had a completely different story, involving a honeymoon couple, a farmer, pictures of babies glued to cardboard, and a live baby. We will cover this in detail later, but we only know of this because that's what the supposed Alice Guy character left us with. But how do we know? I mean, did you see the way she was treating those babies? The big question is, why is this stuff?
Hold on one second. I'm trying to get to the comments here. Let's see. How do we get to the comments here? Let's show the comments here. Oh, it's not letting me do that for some reason. Hold on one second here. Line unveiled. Okay, I think this is how I get there. Hold on, family. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. I'm going to come here to get to that video there. We got to get to those comments. Short. Here. Let's see. Hold on one second. I got to get to these comments here, family. Let me just back up here. So basically, this video talks about the postcards over 100 years ago. And, oh, okay, here it is, right here. Okay, here. Okay, these are the comments. All right, so now. So check this out here. Here's one comment here. My great-grandpa came west on an orphan train in the early 1900s. He said he had been in a factory in New York before that. We asked if he meant orphanage, and he said no. That it was a factory, and he said he never had parents. This is taken on such a bizarre new meaning. Okay, yeah, so I did a huge dive into this back in 2006. Here's another comment. Why? Because I had someone tell me a story that great-great-grandfather told about children became farmed and he meant it as though religion had something to do with it. According to this man, who was quite old back in the 1980s, this is when his story was shared, he told his son and so on. She said he was about 90 when he told her. That gives us a good idea of how long ago the story is told. Oh yes, here's another one. This is going to sound kooky, but here it goes. Back in the mid 1970s, I met an old couple I befriended and would drive to appointments, the store, and such. The husband told me that he had no parents and insisted he was quote unquote manufactured. His wife, who had parents, told me that he was telling me the truth and that, quote, there were many, many others, unquote. I laughed it off as either a joke or he was getting dementia and she was going along with the fantasy. But now maybe I've also lost my mind. I'm starting to rethink those conversations that I disregarded. He told me a lot of other crazy stuff that's turning out not to be so crazy after all. Here's another one. My grandmother used to call me Mon Petit Chol. When I was very young. She was French Canadian. It always stuck with me. I remember asking my dad why she was calling us Cabbage Patch Kids. He said it was just a term of endearment. I believe that that's what he believed, and so did my grandmother. But its origin certainly came from something. It's also curious that nearly all these postcards are in French. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone. I've been looking into this kind of stuff since about 2008, and I'm coming to the realization that we're living in some kind of an experiment, a simulation. The stuff we can sense with let's continue, senses are the illusion and the real world, which we cannot perceive with our physical senses. And it just goes on and on. Check this one out. My great grandmother came to Australia from Europe when she was very young, alone, and with a son named John. She died in the late 80s and was about 97. At least that's what she guessed her age to be. She never ever spoke of her past, only that of her late husband, who was like 35 years older than her and had a heap of children he left in Ireland. And we only found out about this other family after her death. When I asked her about her son and his father, thinking she may have been a widow and was making a new life for herself in Australia, she said he did not have a father, that she found him in the cabbage fields where she worked as a young girl. I just thought she was being silly, but now I'm not so sure. One thing's for sure, her life was full of mystery and plenty of skeletons came out of the closet after her death. Listen to this one. My thoughts on this are that we historically experienced some type of reset in the 1800s that left women, men barren and wiped out huge portions of the population. It created a lot of confusion and perhaps wiped the memory of those who survived due to the trauma they experienced. Therefore, babies had to be manufactured to repopulate humanity once again. Here's another one. My grandfather was raised in an orphanage. We have tried to trace where he came from to no avail. I have for a very long time felt they mass-produced babies for the wars. Interesting, I noticed one of the cards has them wearing military hats. My stepfather was a trained orphan. He died last year at 88. That's a box you could dive into as well. And it goes on and on and on and on. Let's see. Let's see here. Anything else before we move on? So you see this family, but see these people have these stories in their family. They have these stories, and this video, got almost 5,000 comments of people talking about these stories passed down in their families. Like this here, Diane, from this lady here. My father's mom and dad and his aunt and uncle, 2 sisters and 2 brothers were all orphans. They met on the boat from Italy and arrived at Ellis Island. Seriously, it's very strange that the celebrities are linked from family ancestry tree while the common people aren't. Our recent ancestors were actually manufactured. We are the great grandchildren of clones. These are the comments they're having, family. We never heard stuff like this. Because we don't, I don't have this in my family. I can go back. So, speaking of that, now let's move on. And I'm just going to, so we see that there. But see, Africans don't know any better because they don't know what's really going on in America between certain groups of people. They see what they see in the movies, what they get in their books, and everyone falls victim to that. But it has nothing to do with reality. Nothing to do with reality. So, let's start here. I'm going to start off by just sharing a little bit of my family history, records that Africans don't have. Let's show them what a little bit of it looks like. Because they need the education. They need the education, right? So, we don't know who our fathers are. My God, what madness. So hold on one second here, family. Let's pull up my file here. Okay, here. Okay. So I'm gonna just show a little bit here. Okay, here. Boom. Let's open this up. So this is an image of my birth. I'm a Grisette. That's where I'm born. Born at 3:22 a.m. December 5th, 1966, Los Angeles. And you see here, mother of child, Brenda Lee Ziegler. It's my mother. Okay. Father of child, Wallace Grisette. Okay. And of course, this is the original. Now, you guys, remember Obama kind of changed stuff. I believe it was 2000, in the 2011 or something. So whenever you get a copy of your birth certificate, make sure you get the original copy from the whichever, you're going to have the headquarters of the vital records. You want to get it there. Okay. So, of course, here at this time, color, race, they had Negro. Not now, of course, Africans think the term African American was been applied to us. They think that's a social construct that went on, that was applied to us for hundreds of years, and they don't know anything, because that social construct African American is not on my records, it's not on my mother's records, it's not on my grandmother's records, etc. So yes, Frank Zanu, African Americans don't have culture because African Americans are a recent created social construct. My land owning ancestors hundreds of years ago weren't African Americans. So yes, African Americans do not have culture because African Americans never owned land and were not ancient farmers. We agree with that. So from here, let me show this list here. Show this here. So on my just I know. So my paternal line. So you have me here, 1966. My father, Wallace, he died in 2018. He's born in 1947, August 7th. My grandfather, Fred Grisette, born December 31st, 1903. He died in 1947 when he moved from Louisiana he moved to Los Angeles in 1943. He had 3 children from my grandmother, Isabel. Barbara Ann Grisette, Fred Grisette Jr., and my father, Wallace. Now, when he died in 1947, January 6th, my father was a couple of months old, a seed in my grandmother's stomach. He wasn't even born yet when my grandfather died. Okay, so my auntie, my father's oldest sister, Barbara Ann, died. She got caught up in that Jim Jones madness and was killed down in Guyana in the Jim Jones incident. And so just my uncle Fred and my father, my uncle was the last one standing. He died a couple years ago. Okay, and then of course my grandfather Fred Grissett, his father's Jack Grissett, and as I showed here, his father's Jack Grissett, and so here, let's go here, show this here, Jack marriage. Let me show mine. So you see that there. Let me show this here. Okay, so this is my grandfather, Fred Grissett, that you saw on the list there. Right there, Fred Grissett, my grandfather. So this is his marriage certificate. See, so these are records, Africans. So we have identities, we have culture. These are records that you guys need to get your stuff together here. But you need a template, you need a model. So I'm giving you guys a model that you can invoke and create for your own nations there. Okay, so you see here, my father Fred Grissett, his wife, my grandmother Isabel, she was a marble. Okay, this is January 23rd, 1940. Where was Frank's nation of Benin? What were they doing in 1940? Did they have? We know they didn't have records in 1940, right? So here, Fred Grissett down. Now key down here. So now my grandfather lists his parents. Name of his mother, Martha Grissett, and Jack Grissett, right? That's his father. So that's my great grandfather. You see him here. He's born 1865, died 1911, from Louisiana. Okay, so Jack Grissett, born 1865, and Martha, you see on my grandfather's marriage license, mother's Martha. So then we make a further connection here by showing. Let's see here, make a further connection. Hold on. So he sees me, my father Wallace, my grandfather Fred Grissett, and on his license he named his mother Martha and his father's Jack Grissett. So we go down here, and this is my great grandfather's marriage certificate. State of Louisiana, Clerk's Office, Bellevue, Louisiana. Okay. Celebrate marriage between Mr. Jack Grissett and his wife Martha Richards. That's her maiden name. Well, we just saw on my grandfather's marriage license, he mentioned his parents, Jack and Martha. Now here's his parents, my great grandparents, on my paternal line, their marriage license in the year October 16th, 1889. So, and then of course, Jack Grissett's father is Thomas Grissett, born 1826 in Monroe County, Alabama. All right? And then from 1826 to exactly 200 years ago. So Monroe County, Alabama. And then he moved from there in the around 1853. Thomas went into the southern portion of Arkansas, Union County, Arkansas, to be exact, where he got a land patent there, and then from Union County, Arkansas, he went south into Bossier Parish, Louisiana, around 1860, and he had two sons, my great grandfather Jack and Pinckney. Those were his two sons. Okay, and then. So let me show you, matter of fact, I got this image to show the family. So Thomas was born 1826, Monroe County, Alabama. This is the house he grew up in. Still stands in Monroe County, Alabama. House built in the 1820s from his father, William Jesse Grissett. who was born in North Carolina, who moved into Alabama in the early 1820s. This house still stands. It's a Grissett house. So, and then my grandfather left Bossier, Louisiana, and moved into Labette, Parsons County, Kansas. I got him on a census there, and so let me show this here. He moved into Kansas, so I can give you this about the migratory patterns of my ancestors. Okay, so let me show this. 1980, 1880 here. I think I have that. Let's see here. 1880. I think I have the 1880 census here. 1880. Okay, right here. So this is the 1880 census. This is another record we have in America. Africans. Census records. Right? So this is the 1880. You see that? June 15, 1880, Labette, County of Labette, State of Kansas. So he moved, he was born in Alabama, 1826, went into Union County, Arkansas for a while, came down to Bossier Parish, and then settled in Kansas. But what did he do in those 2 stops in Kansas and Louisiana? He got land patents. Ancient farmer, agriculture, culture. So he's in Labette County, Kansas. We can see his name. These are the head of families. You can see his name on here. Right there, Thomas Grissett and his wife Anna. Okay, right there. Okay. Now, of course, this wife is his second wife because it's not the mother of my great grandfather Jack. Jack's mother, he had 2 sons with a Harriet. Harriet is the mother of my great grandfather Jack Grissett and my uncle Pinckney Grissett. Okay, but this is 1880, and so now also when he moved into Kansas, Labette County was a new formed county. Okay, and they actually have a book about that county, and I got a copy of the. I'm going to share that with the family here. So here's a book on Parsons County. You see that Labette County, Kansas, for 1880. This is when this was written, talking about the new form county. It lists all of the churches and the Masonic temples and the how much agriculture they produce, about their economy, and it lists all the individuals living, important individuals living in Parsons, Kansas, in this book in 1880. So this is just a screenshot of the cover, and then the page where it lists my great grandfather, my second paternal grandfather, is on this page here. I took a screenshot from family, page 45. To see all these names, you come here, Thomas Grissett. Okay, and he was a farmer, of course. Farmer, that's culture. Okay, so we can show you books going back hundreds of years of our ancestors, documents that nearly 1 billion you guys don't even have, being farmers, owning land, and we're not finished. So that there, right? So then now on the thumbnail of this presentation, now I'm going to share a little bit. I just showed my paternal line. Now on my maternal line, my mother, this is the thumbnail of my presentation, right there. This is my great grandfather, great maternal grandfather, my grandmother's father, Edmund Coco. He was in World War I. This is him in his uniform. Okay, he's born in 1892, also from Louisiana. All right, he died in 1974. Okay, so this is the image I use for my thumbnail. It's my great grandfather. All right, this is a picture in the house right when I grew up with my grandmother above the piano. And here is a picture of my grandmother on her obituary here. She died in 2007. But that's an image of her there, Ruby Coco Lewis, right? And so from here, on here, we go back to her story, which I can share about my grandmother. This is her story and her obituary. So we see the family connections. My grandmother Ruby was born April 12, 1923 in Shreveport, Louisiana, to the late Carrie Presley and Edmund Coco. That was his photo I just showed you for my thumbnail. Her father, Edmund Coco, and then her mother, Carrie Presley. I'm going to show a little bit about my Presley ancestors as well. So she attended and graduated from, this was Central Colored High School. That was the name of her high school in 1941. Central Colored High School. No term as African American never existed in those days. And then my grandmother married my grandfather, Lee Arthur Ziegler, and they had 5 children. Marie, Carolyn, my auntie Brenda, this is my mother, still alive. Eddie, my uncle Eddie, he's no longer with us, and my auntie Rhonda, still alive. Okay? My grandmother was blessed with 21 grandchildren, 15 great-grandchildren. All right? And she remarried again in 1974 to my step-grandfather, Otis Lewis. She went to Mount Moriah Baptist Church. That's down there. And then we go down here. And she leaves behind her daughters, Brenda, Rhonda, son Edward, grandchildren, Latanya, Charles, Andre, that's me, Darnell, Kim, Keisha, Chappelle. We got all this. So we know who we are. We have family connections. We have records. Okay, so speaking, let's go back up. So my grandmother's mother is Carrie Presley. Okay, so Carrie Presley's father. Now let me show a little bit of this here. Okay, so we had our 2012 family reunion in 2012, and I'm going to share a little bit about that there. Our family reunion. Let's see here. Certificate. Family reunion 2012. Maybe here. Okay, right here. So this is our 2012 family reunion. Okay. Okay, so this is the Presley. So my grandmother's mother named Carrie Presley. Carrie Presley was born 1896. She's also from Louisiana. She died 1976. I remember her when I was a little boy. Yeah, I remember her. So this is, let me blow this up here. Presley family reunion. So now this is my great grandfather, Stephen Presley, from Darlington County, South Carolina, born 1820. Okay, this is a photo of him in the early 1900s. Okay, now see, back in these days, family, these ancestors were like, they're basically gods because they did everything. So he was a carpenter. He built. I'm going to show images of the. He built 4 churches, 3 of which still stands in DeSoto Parish, Louisiana. And he built the Buena Vista House, which still stands. And he built the churches. He was the pastor of those churches. And then when I talked to my auntie Liza, who's a Presley, and she has all of the Presley land in DeSoto Parish. She has all that now to this day. She's currently in her 90s. But she told me stories of the Presley farm and how they were living and passed all those stories down. So, but this is our an example of an American family reunion brochure. And what's the title? Know the roots from which you came, from Nehemiah 2:18. And then we had this in Shreveport Convention Center in 2012 there for 3 days there, okay? And now, Morning Star Baptist Church, one of the churches my grandfather built, okay? My great-grandfather there. So let's go down here. So these are the children of Stephen, the image you just saw. And then the first, my connection here, Isom Presley. Let's go down. These are some of that's my cousin Liza there. Now let's go down here to the tree here. Okay, to Bethel Baptist Church. This is one of the churches my ancestors built. Right there. Okay. Now we also have the Presley Cemetery behind the church. So about an acre of the land was dedicated to a cemetery where all our family members can be buried there. And of course, my great-great-grandfather Stephen Presley's buried there. And I'm going to show you his cemetery. But this is one of the churches he built. Bethel Baptist Church there. This is now he's from Mechanicsville, is a little area town near Darlington, South Carolina. That was one of the famous Baptist churches that was connected there. Morning Star Baptist Church, Gloucester, Louisiana. He built this one, still standing there to this day. Matthew Baptist Church, still standing there, that he built. That's still there in DeSoto Parish to this day. Now this is the Buena Vista house. He built this house. Now, I believe I'm going to do research on it later when I go to the property records there in DeSoto Parish. I think it could have been his house. I'm going to confirm that once I have time for that. But I'm kind of more focused on my paternal line. But I will confirm that there was the deed in his name. I'm going to confirm that. But let me move down here. So they talk about, what did Frank say? Name two cultural traditions and all this kind of crap. Well, family reunions is a tradition. We got together on our ancestors' land, and we know land deals with culture. And this is an example of one of our cultural traditions, Frank Zanu. Where we can go back to the land and the churches our ancestors built over 200 years ago. All that cultural, that umbilical cord is connected. So here's the image here, the tree here. So we see Reverend Stephen Presley, his wife Phyllis. They had 8 children. So Isom Presley, that's where I start. We start here because Isom married my grandmother's mother, Carrie Presley, that you saw before. So Stephen's first child, Isom, was born in 1845. Right here. So right off Ancestry.com, right here. So Isom Presley, 1845, died 1915. Now this here is his tombstone, which is crazy. I don't know how they allow this kind of old tombstone. I will, give him a respect. I'm going to get a real tombstone made for him though. But yeah, this is Isom Presley there. So let's go back to the deal there. Presley. Okay, so you see, so we have culture, we have connections, and this is an example of culture for the Africans listening. All right, and then these are all the records associated with them that we have here, right? So that's on my maternal line, right? So now let's kind of move into the next segment here. Now, Latin, during the previous presentation, part one, I talked about it, but I didn't really show the images. Now, remember I mentioned Sir Solomon Sir Jones, born in Georgia, and he moved into Indian Territory, which is called Oklahoma today. And he took a video camera over 100 years ago, and he just videoed as a hobby. Now he was also a preacher, had many churches, very very successful, but he had a hobby, and he would take a camera and just start filming. And this is in the early 1920s. And areas in Indian Territory, what they call Oklahoma, all over the U.S., Texas, Tennessee, Indianapolis, Chicago. He went everywhere. And then he traveled around the world, Egypt, Palestine, France, England, everywhere. So I'm going to show a few clips from that documentary so then we can show the world and Africans how we were living over 100 years ago. Okay? And whether or not we have culture. So, hold on. So Solomon Sir Jones. I'm going to show this first. His father is John Wesley Jones. Okay? So this is the 1850 census of his father. Now this is before Solomon Sir Jones was born, because he was born in 1869. But we're just going to go a little bit back on his genealogy to show his situation. Now this is the 1850 census. Okay, free inhabitants in the county of I can't really read that there. Scott. Okay, county of Scott, state of Mississippi, August 7, 1850. Okay, so let's go down where his father's listed. Oh, as a matter of fact, this is his grandfather, because his father was not a head of household yet. He was still in his father. So this is this is Solomon Sir Jones' grandfather on this census in 1850. Okay, because his father was still in his grandfather's household. Now let's go back up here. This is the category of the head of households. Okay, in this particular county, when the enumerator came to get the census information, that Africans need to catch up, because they don't even have this modernly in 2026. Okay, so let's go down here. Okay, right here, Jeremiah Jones. So this is Solomon Sir Jones' grandfather. And what does it say his occupation? Farmer. Culture. The tiller of the land. The agriculturalist. And so now in this household, John W. That's John Wesley Jones. That's Solomon Sir Jones' father. And in 1850, his father's 19 years old in his father's household. But see, the world gets this image that we were, according to the movies, in chattel slavery. This 1850 family. So again, they reconstructed the histories. All right, we were shifted into this different jurisdiction with these characters, and think of it as a Hollywood script. And then the character we're in their script that we didn't write, we didn't approve. For us, it always changes, right? First, it goes from Indian to colored to black to Negro and to now African American. We're the only ones on the planet to where our social construct constantly changes. Constantly. Not Frank Zanu's construct. He's Benin. He's from Benin. That doesn't change. This 1850. So when they say, birthright citizenship, 1868, What are you talking about? Who did that apply? It didn't apply to a Grisette. It didn't apply to Solomon Sir Jones people. It's 1850 census. What does it say up top here? Free inhabitants. Oh, but they don't tell you guys that. They don't teach you that, right? Because you're gonna believe what people tell you in front of people on a camera. Because they want to get you up under their spell, so to get you to believe, to disconnect you, so they can control your ancestors' land. That's what it's all about, family in America. It's all about land. And when you understand title, who are the heirs of the title, and who own the title, that's the only way you'll understand true American history. And of course, African will never understand that because they're not behind the curtain. Their fans would cease way in a balcony. They're not even up close. So they don't know anything about us. But we're just sharing a little bit now. So this is Solomon Sir Jones' grandfather, Jeremiah Jones, 48. This 1950, which means he was born 1802. And he's a farmer, okay? With his family in his household, and that's his father, John W. Now this 1850. Now let's go to 1860. 10 years later, because as we know, the federal census issues every 10 years, right? So this is 1860. Now this is Georgia, okay? So 1860 there, now this is his father, John W. Jones, John Wesley Jones. So John Wesley Jones now living in Georgia. And remember, we just saw 1850, he was 19. So 10 years later, he's 29. And he's a man, head of his own household, but he moved from Mississippi into Georgia. And he's on the 1860 census, free inhabitants. Let's go down here. John W. Jones, there he is right there. He's just like his father. He's a farmer. And his wife, housekeeper, stay-at-home mom. And then they had a junior. Now, of course, this 1860, Solomon Sir Jones not born yet, so he's not on this census. So then we go to the 1880 census. And it's the state of Tennessee, Shelby County. So his father was in Georgia in 1860. 20 years later, he's in Tennessee, the state where Solomon Sir Jones was born. Right? So let's go down here. Show this here. Right there. Wesley. Wesley Jones, right? John Solomon, there he is right there, the son. Okay? 10 years old in 1880, so he was born actually 1869, so he would have been 11 later on this year. But that's Solomon. Okay? So I wanted to kind of set the context before we get into his videos. And now, so we see that. Now I'm going to show this here. Solomon Sir Jones' passport. Image of his passport. Okay. So United States of America, October 27th, 1924. Okay. State of Oklahoma, County of Muskogee. I, Solomon Sir Jones, a native and loyal citizen of the United States, hereby apply to the Department of State of Washington for a passport. I solemnly swear that I was born at Haywood County in the state of Tennessee on or about the 20th day of August, 1869. That my father, John Wesley Jones, which we just saw on the previous census records, was born in the state of Georgia. We confirmed that from the 1860 census, when John Wesley was with his father there in the United States of America. Now, he said his fathers are now dead, right? But that's his father. We made that connection. We confirmed the census records, John Wesley Jones, right? So we go down here. Where is he going? So he said, so he's domiciled and he's living now in Muskogee County, Oklahoma, where he's a minister. Because Solomon Sir Jones was a minister. My last passport was well, he's never had. This is his first one. I'm about to go abroad temporarily. I intend to return to the United States within 1 year, with the purpose of residing and performing the duties of citizenship therein. I desire a passport for use in visiting the countries hereinafter named for the following purposes: England, France, Switzerland, travel and study; Italy, Egypt, and Palestine. Palestine, this is before 1948, this is 1924. Travel and study. I intend to leave the United States from the port of New York, sailing on the board the ship SS Paris on January 1925. Oath of allegiance. His signature, Solomon Sir Jones. There it is, family. So this is, now think about this here. How important he is, because, and I'm going to show you when we see the videos there, because many of you may not have seen this when I presented it years ago. But this is legend. This is when you become a legend, because your body of work will speak for you. When you're no longer around, people in the future will utter your name. People in the future will demonstrate and show your body of work. That's how you become a legend. We can change lives, right? So this kind of stuff in Africa never been exposed to this. But they're getting educated now. All right, so that's his passport. Let me show you. Here's a ship manifest. The ship manifest. People love to say we're them, but they can never present a real ship manifest to say that we're them. But here's a ship manifest of an American coming on a ship, but of course for his travel, for educational purpose and travel as a minister. So here it is here. Lives United States citizens. The name of the ship was the SS Baltic, sailing from Liverpool, February 21st, 1925, arriving at the port of New York, March 4th, 1925. So February 21st to March 4th, it's like about close to a little bit under 2 weeks it takes to go from Liverpool, England to New York. Okay, so we see here names. We go down here, Solomon S. There he is there. Solomon S. Jones, 55 at the time, Mason, Tennessee, born 1869. This is his ship manifest coming back home. So now let's get and watch a couple of these videos I want to show to the family here. Let's see. To show culture. Okay, so let's get to this here. Okay, here's the link. Okay. So we're going to start with, okay, now this is him. This is how you look right there. That's Solomon Sir Jones there. Now ignore the curse stuff, because you know these people, I'll get into this here. They like to slap the slave cursed African stuff on us. But we understand the sorcery and the spell. We're spell breakers. We understand what's really going on and how all this was designed to eventually make us extinct and replace us with real Africans. That's been the plan the entire time. Okay? So now let's go here. He produced all this work. It's total of 29 videos, family. Of course, at this time, over 100 years ago, it's silent film. So there's no sound. It's silent film. Let's go. I'm going to start with video number 5. Wait for it to boot up here. Verifying. Have to go through all of these steps. Verify you are human. Check that. You're verifying that I'm human, family. Okay, there we go. All right, so now let's pop up. Now I'm gonna get. I already got everything marked out at the exact minute mark we want to focus on, but let's hit play and let's blow it up. Okay. So now remember, this is over 100 years ago, from 1924 to 1928, over 100 years ago, family. This is how. So for these Africans, you know, so you can see how we were living. All right. Where was Frank Zanu's nation in 1925? Can he produce similar examples of culture? That's the question you ask him next time you sit and have a talk with him. So now I want to move to a 4-minute mark. Hold on, let me go to the 4-minute mark here. I got this kind of marked off here. I want to focus on the 4-minute, 50-minute mark. So let's move it up. Oh, matter of fact, hold on a second. Let's show this here. Matter of fact, yeah, this was see, another thing about this here, family. Tulsa, Oklahoma. So these witches and warlocks, they love to talk about Tulsa, right? But they only mention, they never mention that Tulsa rebounded and was better than before. And what I believe, yeah, right here, look at that. So, Turkey Day, Thanksgiving football tradition we have in America. So this was Turkey Day football on Thanksgiving Day between Muskogee. Oh no, this is Thanksgiving Day parade. This is the parade, November 22nd, 1925. But we're gonna move to the. I'm gonna show the football game a little bit here first. So yeah, about Tulsa, they never tell you that Tulsa rebounded and was stronger than it was before 1921. And we're going to see an example of that. Okay? Because this is the name of the game, family. They slap you with the slave curse. They say, oh, well, you had no freedoms. You couldn't move. You couldn't read. You weren't allowed education. You weren't free for money. You couldn't own land. You had no rights. And then even after it ended, you were under Jim Crow. All these are spells, family, that we fell victim to. Because this is supposedly during the Jim Crow era what the Solomon Jerk. This is the gift from Solomon Sir Jones, the gift from him to us, to show you the reality, what was going on during the time that we're taught in schools and in the movies, that we were just always suffering. Well, they have to think about that. If you go into this great place and you wanna try to overtake what these people have, what's the best way to do it? Not fire a bullet, because the pen is more mighty than the sword. And then when you get control of the medium, the camera, and you create these movies and images on a big screen, and you promote a certain image that's different than our image, and then you attribute all things greatness to America to them, and then you take that image of movies in Hollywood and send it all around the world. Of course things are going to change, and then you create this story. But let's continue here. Let me back it up right to the beginning there. back it up a little bit more. Okay. Okay. There. Now, what you're seeing, you see all these cars, these vehicles, right? Um, and this, Frank Zanu also said, family, he said the only people on the planet who can create civilization and towns and cities and all of this stuff are pale skinned Europeans. He literally said that from his mouth. Now, of course, that's how they educated people like Frank Zanu. He doesn't know any better. He can only go on what he's told. This is, so here's a nation in Indian territory. This is their stuff. No one made this stuff for them. So that's the football game here, 1925. Now, let me back it up because this is important right here. Let's look. We always got to look at the examine everything, right? Boom. Look at the neighborhood. Look at that. Look at that. Look at these structures. This is so Tulsa rebounded, but none of these warlocks talk about that because. And then you had the last remaining survivors. You had, I think it was like 3 or 4 of them, well over 100 years old. I believe the last one died recently. And do you know you had Roland Martin and that double lawyer Crump. They went over into Tulsa. This is right during the lockdown, and they had it. They called it Little Africa. And at the time, they're reconstructing their histories again, calling it Little Africa, family. Because again, it's to kill us off, replace us with real Africans, so their story can become more, can have a little bit of reality to it. So let's just watch a little bit of this here. Right, and then they had all this infrastructure here. Now I want to get up to remember, when you have stuff, you have to be able to protect it, right? You have to be able to protect it. That's key. So let's move up here. It's his farm. Yep, this is his farm, his cotton farm. So when they want to call us cotton pickers, that's a compliment. Damn right, our ancestors were cotton pickers, picking cotton because that cotton was king, and the world depended on it, and that's how they got wealthy. Picking cotton on their land. Let's move up here. Because you have to be able to protect all this stuff, right? So let's move up here. Okay, let's see. Let's show the let's see, where is that? I want to show the military base. Their military base. Hold on. Is it? Oh no, that's a different video. Okay, so we got that. I'm gonna show the military base, right? Because you have infrastructure. Now remember, years ago I did a build on Indian Territory, Muskogee, which was a separate in America, and where I talked about the financial situation of them for land and homes and probate estates at the time. They were number one, outdoing the United States at that time. And I presented that in a presentation years ago. We're not going to get into that today, but let's get to film 8. I'm going to show the military base here. Okay, let's blow it up here. Now remember, a car was a luxury item. You had to be wealthy to have a car in the 1920s, family. I hope you realize that. And the people like Frank Zanu worship and think who are the real Americans, they were just getting here. They were poor. They were just coming across Ellis Island. I showed also one of the um, what's his name? The Halliburton. So we have Halliburton Energy, and there was a European Halliburton, the European Halliburton went into. I did a presentation on this. I may do it again in the future. But he went into Oklahoma, Indian Territory, Oklahoma, to learn the oil game from the first true oil barons of America, who were here, and Solomon Sir Jones documented that. Those were the first oil barons. So here we're the military base family. First Battalion, First FA is field artillery. 3rd Battalion, 20th Infantry, 44th Observatory Squadron. So when you want to trace a unit's genealogy, you trace it through this. This is how you know a unit's genealogy is through what it says here. The 1st Battalion is the 1st Battalion, right? So this history goes way back hundreds of years before, and in certain battles, right? This 1st Battalion, 1st Field Artillery, I believe that's what it stands for there. Marlon knows what I'm talking about. So you want to trace the lineage of a military unit, you trace it through its name there. Okay, so now let's continue. So that's the general store on the military base there. That's a general store. I mean, an exchange. The exchange. That's what it's called. It's an exchange there. Okay. These are barracks. There, right there. Look at that. Now this here is basically this huge structure here will be a hangar. It's a hangar, right? And in there they'd have all kinds of equipment, and we know what we keep in hangars. It could be aircraft. It can be ground, tanks, whatever that they use as well. But that's a hangar. That's another hangar there, right there. See that? Now here. Now I want to just kind of highlight. I took a screenshot of this brother here, right here, here. So now I had a screenshot of him where I zoomed in on his bars. If you look, you see those stripes. See, that's a high ranking officer. Okay, it's a high ranking officer there. And it looks like there's one bar there, which could be uh, 1 star maybe. Okay, but now when I also analyze his uniform, this at the time, this is not falling up under the United States military. Remember, Muskogee is a separate, its own nation. Solomon Sir Jones, all this is in Muskogee, under the Muskogee jurisdiction. Okay? So I wanted to show that because in order to protect wealth, you have to have military might to take it, or people will come in to steal it from you. Yeah, so I wanted to show that real quick there, on that there. Let me see what else. Something else I wanted to show here. Oh yeah, I want to go to the school footage. So I want to show some of that, the school footage there. Okay, this is the school footage, children coming out. It was like an elementary. Um, and now, of course, see, Africans don't get this image. They get in the image with our pants sagging off our asses. Youngsters, of course, there's been damage because there's been a constant war against us. But we were not always like that. We fail. We have to admit that. Yes, we fail when it comes to the level our grandparents and great grandparents were on compared to us today. Yes, that happened. But there are many of us out here that are trying to, and who's on a mission to reconnect and get back our inheritance. Okay, now I'm going to go to video 2 here. I want to show the family. Go to video 2. And then all you can just look this up, and everyone needs to have the Solomon Sir Jones video footage for your library there to share with your children, etc. Right? Think if we didn't have these images. Now, what I wanted to point out, remember when you had the descendants of the Cherokee that they had a big fight and about letting them in, they got kicked out, all that crap. Trying to represent them in the wrong way. This is the kind of evidence they actually need to get remedy, right? So I'm going to go to the 6-minute mark here. And I want to show something here. This is a parade here. Okay, so this is the parade. You see everybody there, and all these cars will have these. You see those banners there on the side of the car. It's an advertisement for the businesses. So it'd be like the name of the business, their address, they're promoted. This is how this is basically advertising. And you see all these vehicles. People were thriving. What Jim Crow area you're suffering? Boston. You see that there was a Cleaners there. Right there, Travelers Hotel. See, this is Travelers is a hotel, the cafe. That's the name of this business. And this is a brilliant idea at the time, how you promote your business and get your brand out there, right? Now, think about this here, family. Of many of you who had ancestors who were from and lived in Indian territory during this time. This is the question you should be asking yourself. What happened to all of your personal assets, your ancestors' personal assets, like these vehicles? Right? Okay, right here. Start right there. Okay. This we're getting the culture, family. J.H. Roberts. Lord Roberts. Lord meaning landowner. Give him his respect. Lord Roberts. Farm homes. What does it say? 3,000 acres. But look at the top. One of Mr. and Mrs. J.H. Roberts' farm homes. Not the only one. One of them. 3,000 acres. This is the address. Bristol, Oklahoma, 1927. Let's continue. That's culture. So can Frank Zanu or any other African show us similar footage in 1927 of them having culture? If not, you don't even deserve, you can't even come in the room to have a conversation with us. That's his house, family. Surrounded by his land. And then I'm going to go to another portion where he has and show you his oil field. Well, his oil, because he had an oil field, but he had an oil wells in his backyard. What do you think, Frank? That some person who looked like Bill Clinton came and built this for him out of his good kindness of his heart or something? Right? So maybe that happened, family, because he said we have no culture, we don't know what we're doing. So maybe if someone else came and built all this stuff for us, then, huh? Because they love us so much. That's Mr. Roberts, Lord Roberts, right there. Now check this out. Watch this. Get into his car. Now watch this. Boom, right there, right there. Boom. His initials on his car. JB Roberts. Got his initial on his car. Now think about whoever's the descendant of Mr. Roberts today. If this was still in the family, most likely, again, what happened with the takeover, terror, and they stole all their shit. You know how much this car would be worth today if it was still in the family, in the Roberts family today, family? Now we're going to go to the, okay, yeah, the 8-minute mark. Now he's walking over to his oil wells, family. Hold on. That's where he's going. This is other area of his land. That's his son. Boom, right there. Farm home of Mr. and Mrs. J. Roberts. One of their oil wells. 1,000 acres. May 9th, 1927, Bristol, Oklahoma. See, they always tell you about what's the famous one there? Tulsa. Tulsa was nothing compared to like Bristol, Oklahoma, or Bowley, Oklahoma. Tulsa was nothing compared to those areas, but they only focused on, there were over 60 plus melanated towns in Indian Territory, family. Well over that. And it was over, and I did a bill years ago. I'm gonna do that again later on this year, maybe in the next month or so, about Texas, where it's over 557 towns in Texas. You Google how many towns in Texas today, it's not even 250 today. But for some reason, it was over 500 melanated over, hundreds of years ago. But this is oil well, on 1,000 acres. One of his wells. So let's show this. See that? Boom, it's pumping right there. See that well? Look at that. That's in his backyard. How many people got oil wells in their backyards, family, today in 2026? Africans aren't even on the table. They're off the board with us. How many people right now in America, in Europe, anywhere, with an oil well in their backyard? Okay, so that's culture. The agriculture, the farmer, the tiller of the land owner. That's culture. Because once you have culture, the human can elevate to do incredible things. But without culture, you're a hunter and gatherer. You got to wake up and go hunt. And if you got if you're successful at a 30% clip, you got you got to prepare for a lot of what do you call um what do you call that fasting. But it's not that you it's your choice to fast for health reasons. You fasting becomes part of your life. Now, final segment. Now, remember, now I'm going to show. I was blessed with this information, family. Ancestors blessed me, and I got to share it. I got to share it with you guys because this is what's been going on the entire time. I did a presentation on the Stanley family out of North Carolina. Famous, right? But again, what happened was the reconstruction of histories to bring us down from the top all the way to the bottom to make us the permanent underclass. It's again, all that's part of the curses. It's in Deuteronomy 28, which shows and proves we can definitely recognize who were the people of the book when you look at that, because everything that's laid out there, where nations will come into your land, rise above you, you no longer control your land, you no longer benefit from your crops, others will, because it's on us. We sinned. We broke. We stopped following the commandments. It's on us. But to break out of that, you got to get back to start honoring your mothers and fathers again. Getting to know them, getting to know what inheritance they left you. Going after it. It's the only way. So, John Stanley. Don't know if you heard of him. John Stanley. And so basically what they've been doing, and all this is recent, all this, the reconstructed of the histories really actually started in the 1900s. It could be 1940s, 50s, and they took over these societies like DARS of the American Revolution, SARS, Sons of the American Revolution. They got themselves into those organizations, okay? But what they had to do, they had to weave themselves into our family lineages, family names, and they had to muddy things up to connect themselves to that, right? Same thing's happening now when they're bringing over all these foreigners, right? And so what's more valuable than gold, oil, natural gas, and minerals are our genealogical records, family. That's the most valuable thing on the planet. Because in America, it's about the land. Who controls the land? So when they created the sorcery to disconnect us, to say it brought us from another continent, but what have that benefited us? Do we have an inheritance over in West Africa? No. What is insanity? Repeating the same thing and you get the same result. A nothing burger. Africans would be looking for long lost family members in America if we came from them. They wouldn't be contracting with Chinese to build their infrastructure. They'd be contracting with the long lost family members in America. You didn't build any highways. We just showed Solomon Sir Jones how we were living. Matter of fact, I showed this in the presentation. I was going to do this today. I'm going to save it. I'm going to do it again. I did it years ago, where in the 1930s, under Stalin and what was called the USSR, they were down on their fucking luck. They needed to rebuild their nation. And they came a calling to America. Who did they contract with to rebuild their nation in the 1930s, family? They went to Tuskegee Institute and contract with 100 of those agricultural scientists from Tuskegee to send them to the USSR in the 1930s to rebuild their nation. Did you know that? But today, we've been shot down so much, anything what's associated with us is DEI. So did Stalin hire DEI agricultural scientists to build Russia? He didn't go to China to help build Russia in the 1930s. He didn't go to India to contract with them to have them rebuild the USSR. He didn't go to Harvard, didn't go to Columbia. He went to Tuskegee Institute because at that time, our reputation was not like it is today. And that's in the 1930s. I'm going to redo that again. I'll dedicate another segment to that. Okay? So, so they reconstructed everything. And I'm going to show an example of that right now. Because I did a presentation on John Stanley years ago. But I got blessed a couple of days ago when I was preparing for this part 2 here. And I got to share it with the family here. So, John Stanley. Sometimes they say John C. Stanley, John Carruthers Stanley. Sometimes you see the C middle name. Sometimes just John Stanley. Okay? Born around... So, let's first start with the cover story. With the sorcery cover story. You know, they slapped the African label and all that crap, right? Let's start with that. John C. Stanley, The Anomalies of Freedom. This is, okay, 2022 article, right? This is actually his house. Still stands there in New Bern, North Carolina. Okay? Structure there. So here, March 12th, 1795, began a new chapter in the life of John Carruthers Stanley. On this day, the 21-year-old, so if he was 21 years old in 1795, family, he's born in 1774. Right? Now, check this out. This is the sorcery. Okay? This is what these witches and warlocks do. They're going to curse you with the African deal. On this day, the 21-year-old, considered the son of a local merchant, John Wright Stanley, and the enslaved Igbo woman, whose name was not recorded, received his freedom through a petition by his enslavers. Now look at this. And then it says here, John built a fortune through his barber shop. This allowed him to buy real estate in town and multiple plantations, making him one of the richest men in town. Then it says here, to ensure that his freedom was recognized by the state, in 1798, John Carruthers Stanley petitioned the General Assembly to pass an act declaring his freedom. 2 years later, Stanley secured his wife, Kitty Green, and 2 sons, John and Kitty. Later had more children, were born free. Now, okay, now listen. Now watch this. It says that he secured the freedom of his wife, Kitty Green, who became Kitty Stanley, right? In 1798, right? Check this out. Watch this. Just to show you how they jimmy the records, alter records, change records to throw us off. Because what they do, family, they went after the illustrious Americans who look like us in the past, and they changed them. They hijacked them. And this is one of them. He's one of them. So you won't find out his true achievements. So they put the slave curse on him. And then his work, he was a barber. Barber. Nothing wrong with barbers, but because they know, that's something that we're kind of known for, right? So, but check this out. Um, okay, here. So I pulled this birth certificate. Now let's go back to the article, because the article said that his wife was Kitty in 1798, right? Now watch this. Watch this here. Uh, Watch this here. So here's the birth certificate. New Bern, North Carolina. See that there? Certificate of death, right? Death certificate. Female, colored, a widow. Okay, take this. Date of birth, 1837. Date of death, 1914. Okay? So it says she died 1914. Born 1837. And her name is Kitty C. Stanley. Kitty Stanley. Okay? Now, check this out. Same as the Kitty we just saw in the article, right there, that Janney secured freedom for his wife, Kitty Green, her maiden name, right, in 1798. So say she was 77 years old when she died. Born 1837, died 1914. Go down here. Name of father, John C. Stanley. But wait a minute. This article in 2022 just said that he married Kitty in 1798. But a death certificate says she was born in 1837. And that her father was John C. Stanley, not her husband. That's one example. But now, here's the real birth certificate. Here's the real one. No, wait a minute. No, not this one. Hold on a second. I think this is it. Hold on. This is it right here. Okay. Okay. So, Craven County marriage bonds. And these are the dates. This is the groom, the bride, the date of the bonds, bondsmen, and the witnesses. Okay. So here we go down here. You see that? John C. Stanley, Kitty Stanley. Okay. March 26, 1805. So yeah, but now that death certificate we just saw that listed her as the daughter of John C. Stanley, right? Is shady. But now Kitty Stanley is his second wife, because let's go. This is 1805, but his first marriage was in 1795. So let's pull that one up. Let's pull that one up. Somewhere here. Okay, well, here's an image of it. Let's see right here. Marriage license. This is it. This is it. Oh yeah, okay, here it is right here. Okay, yeah. So John Stanley, spouse Elizabeth Frank, bond date June 18th, 1795. Okay? So then when we go here to this platform here, archives, you go to archives here. You go to archives, search. Okay, so we're going to hit search. You hit John C. Stanley. We know he's born 1774, right? 1774. North Carolina. Get that in there. Okay, pull this record here. View story. View story here. Okay, you see that has him born right around April 9th, 1774. And then they got him dead around August 1834. Sometimes it can say 1833, but that's now remember, let's go back. That death certificate said that the daughter, alleged daughter of John C. Stanley was Kitty, born 1837. But John C. Stanley died around 1834, 1833. Now we go down here. So we see his spouses, both wives. Elizabeth Frank, we just saw the 1795 marriage record, and then Catherine Kitty Green. Married twice, right? And there's his parents there. Now they tell you, we remember that 2022 article we read, said his mother was an Igbo woman. Igbo, first of all, in the 1700s, first of all, there's no Nigeria, because that's recent. And Nigerians don't have birth records. We know that, just like many other Africans. They have no family history. So if there were connections with Nigerians at that time coming to America, then my advice to you Igbo people who are subject to deportations by Trump, remind Trump that you're the real American because your people were here in America way before him in the 1700s. And if you're definitely a descendant of John C. Stanley, well, one of your African women married into that Stanley line, oh, you are non-deportable. So prove it. But let's just move on, fam, because we know that's just fantasy. We know that's not real. All right, so this is his mother. This is his mother. She's a Cogdale, born 1753, Newborn, Craven County. Not Igbo. This is his mother. This is his mother's father, Richard Calloway Cogdale. 1724, Beaufort, North Carolina. His daddy, Cogdale. We keep going back. North Carolina, 1698. And so on and so on and so on. Okay? So, let's go back here, because we're going to get back here to expose how they hijack and steal the illustrious people in the past. So, John Carruthers Stanley, born around 1774, died 1834. And then the marriage, 1795, which we just saw, this first marriage to Elizabeth, okay, there, of course, had all these children. Now, check this out. This is what I got blessed with. Oh, by the way, the Stanley, we go to the North Carolina land grant database. Land grant meaning a land patent, the highest evidence of title in America. Put in the name, Stanley. John. We hit search. Boom. Like that. Right? Come down here. John Stanley, an assignee of John Gritton's, Surrey County, 1802. Okay? 50 acres. Right there. And we could view that image. Because culture is connected to land ownership, land cultivation, agriculture, culture. John Stanley. Evidence of culture. So we got to remember this, family. Benin, Nigeria, these Ghana, they didn't have functioning city planning and agriculture until the late 1940s, 50s. And they still infrastructure is still not up to date now. They got to rely on China to build stuff. And we know what happens then when if you're in a position to where you got to allow the Chinese to set up your infrastructure, bro, no, you can't even talk to me. But so yeah, so here's a land patent issued to him, one of many. I have another one here. Here's another one for 100 acres. Right here. Right, you see that number 1323, issued July 24th, 1818. Okay, but I thought you guys were. What did they tell us? Oh, you were in chattel slavery. You couldn't own any land. You couldn't do anything. All right. And that's the location there. All right. So that's culture, land ownership. Right. Now let's get back to this. So now we read that and we've seen that there with right here, right? You see his children, see both of his wives. Now watch this, family. So now I was having a conversation with AI here about John C. Stanley. Look at this. So this is the image that they put up on John C. Stanley. You see that? WikiTree. John Stanley, born 1774, 1833, right around the same time, same person, right? But this is the image they give you. It's the image they give you right there, right? Now let's continue. We go here, Wikipedia. Now, so what they basically did, they created a carbon copy of John Stanley and made him look like this. Why would they do that? Because remember, we go back to the article right here, 1922, they're going to slap the slave curse on you, the Igbo mother curse on you, the spell, right? And he was a barber. But yeah, he was a barber, but he got rich being a barber, which allowed him to buy all this land. He had all these, it says what? Multiple plantations, making him one of the richest men in town by being a barber, family. But why would they manufacture this story? And then this guy on Wiki, this is the same image that AI gave me. Same image. Look at that. That's the AI image. Wikipedia image. Same image. Remember, all these images aren't real. They're all phony. From George Washington to Lincoln to Thomas Jefferson to Alexander Ham. All of those images are doctored, phony images. Just like this one right here. This is why they created a carbon double copy to throw you off. Because if you look at this, what does this story say about him? This version is not a barber. What is he? He went to Princeton, studied law, admitted to the bar in 1799. Not only that, he was a member of the U.S. House of Representatives from North Carolina's 4th District. Same dates. April 9th, 1774. August 2nd, 1834. We go back here. We go back here, same birth dates, right there. Look at that, same dates of this one. But it's supposed to be the barber shop guy. All right? Look at that. Stanley County, North Carolina was formed in 1841 and named in his honor. Named in John Stanley's honor. Stanley County. They had to create the duplicate copy to hide, because they hijacked it. Made them look different, because you can't have in your image once they sort of reconstructing the history's family, you cannot have in your image that a Federalist U.S. Congressman from Princeton looked like Denzel Washington. Check this out. Here, it says right here, John Stanley was a Federalist U.S. Congressman from North Carolina between 1801 and 1803, and again in 1809 and 1811. He was the father of Edward Stanley and Admiral Fabius Stanley, and father-in-law to General Walter Keith Armistead. Write that down, because we're not finished yet. Because I got to show you what I was blessed with. Armistead is his son-in-law, but the father of Edward Stanley and Fabius Stanley. Now look at the images they give you. Edward Stanley, that's the image you get. Fabius Stanley, that's the image you get. But now we go here, right? John Carruthers Stanley. Fabius Stanley, son, Edward Stanley. Okay? Marcus Cicero, another one now. Now, check this out. This is what I was blessed with here. Recollections. So, I got it's a recollections of New Bern County. There was a guy talking, and they recollections of what he remember, how things were 50 years ago, and the important people he met. And he met John Stanley. Okay? And they, it's kind of like his memoirs. And just check this out. That's what he says about John Stanley. Lawyers. He was a lawyer, family. But now remember, they created the duplicate copy, the lawyer, and then the cover story, the spell, the barber. Okay? Check this out here. Let me maximize this window. All right. John Stanley was foremost in age and natural gifts. His voice was strong, clear, and musical, and his manner peculiar, graceful, and dignified. In repartee and sarcasm, I never saw his equal. His efforts in that line were absolutely withering. The composure of no suitor, witness, or rival advocate could survive his pungent criticism. Ever bold and fearless, he at once rose to the breadth of the occasion, always wielding a polished scimitar with the energy of a giant and the skill of an artist. He was a representative in Congress in 1801 to 1803, and was also in 1809 through 1811, and is said to have given John Randolph trouble in his peculiar vein. Mr. Stanley was often in the legislature, being twice elected Speaker of the House of Commons, and in January 1827, while on the floor in debate, was stricken with paralysis and was caught in the arms of Robert Potter. He was taken to the Speaker's chair when she adjourned the House. From that hour, he never was himself again. On a visit from Georgia to New Bern in 1829, I called on Mr. Stanley, whose noble features were distorted by affliction. He tried to converse in his formal commanding way, but failed. On parting, he gave me a very correct lithograph likeness of himself. which I retained more than 30 years until it was lost by the wanton depredations on my library and papers in Oglethorpe, committed by federal soldiers attached to the Freedmen's Bureau in 1865. I much regretted the loss of this cherished memento. So what happened? They took that image of him, photo lithograph image he had of Mr. Stanley, and federal soldiers took it and put it in the Freedmen's Bureau in 1865. Here, Mr. Stanley died August 3rd, 1833, matching the dates we just saw, right? Matching those dates, right around the approximate dates there. Death, right? They say August 3rd, 1834, but right around that same period. Same as Wiki. What does Wiki say? April 2nd, 1834, right around the same time. So this guy who knew him personally confirms the death date right around the same time there. August 3rd, 1833, age 59 years old. Now, check this out. His only daughter, now he had more than one daughter, but this is probably what he only knew, married Captain Armistead, remember I told you to remember that name, of the United States Army, in defiance of his opposition. It is said that he never forgave her. This worthy officer was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General. Let's go back. Let's go back. Right here. Here's his list of children right here. Right? List of children right here. So which one married the Armistead? Right? So I believe it was, let's see. Right there. His daughter Elizabeth, born 1797. She married 1814 in Virginia. Who did she marry? Walter Keith Armistead. Now, just to get more perspective on this, John C. Stanley, so everyone's clear, the most important work that Carter G. Woodson left us was two pieces of work. One, thanks to A1, put this out years ago about the melanated so-called slave owners of 1830. But there's another work from Carter G. Woodson called The Heads of Family, the Negro Heads of Family in 1830. Here it is right here. Okay? Here it is right here. Right off archives here. Okay? So 1830, he went through all the states from A to Z of all these, free, wealthy Americans, and he listed all the names. He didn't get to all of them now, some of them. And many of your ancestors could be in here, so this is a valuable tool for genealogy research. 1830. So we go to North Carolina. We go here. Now these are what Carter G. Woodson in his day, in the early 1900s, called Negro heads of families in 1830. Negro heads of families. And we look here, go to Wiki, right? Where was he born? Newborn, North Carolina. The doctor went up, but Newborn, North Carolina. We go here. We go here. Go back here. John C. Stanley, born where? Newborn, Craven, North Carolina. So we go to the work Carter G. Woodson left for us in the state of California, North Carolina. We look down at all these names. We go to Newborn. You see that? Newburn. See that? So we're sure we're in the right county in North Carolina. Okay? Negro heads of family in 1830. And we do know that based upon this, it said that he died 1834 here. And this one gives a date, 1834 here. And the guy we just read in the recollections, He said 1833. So we do know that J.C. Stanley was alive in 1830. Right? Now, free Negro heads of families in New Bern. These are all some of the families that Carter G. Woodson listed for us. So we go down here. So we're in the New Bern category, right? We go down here. We're going to look to see if Carter G. Woodson listed John C. Stanley in New Bern in 1830. Go up to the top here. Names continue here. Voila, there it is. See that? Let's blow it up so everyone can see that. John C. Stanley. It's John S. Stanley. I would have been his son, but John C. Stanley. Now, how do we know this John S. Stanley is his son? Well, let's go here. Go here. J. Carruthers Stanley. List his children. Right? Right there. John Stewart Stanley. John S. Stanley. We click on him. He's born 1794. Died 1858. So in 1830, he would have been, what, 31 years old. And he was right there. He married 1824, so he was a grown man. John S. Stanley. So we go back to the listing. We got John S. Stanley and John C. Stanley, the father. Listed in Carter G. Woodson, Negro Heads of Family in 1830. But this is the image you get from here, and AI gives you the same image. Why? Because you, according to the guy who knew him personally, he was a lawyer. Let's continue here on what he's saying here. Let's continue right here, right? So, I'm going to continue. Now here, Mr. Stanley had a number of sons. John, Alfred, Frank, Edward, Alexander, Fabius, Cicero, and James. We go here. Go back here to the father. So we see that John, he mentioned. Fabius, we go back to the recollection. What did he say? Right? Number of son. Fabius, right? He mentioned John, Edward, Frank, Alexander. Alexander, Edward, Frank, same person, same children. That's in the Free Negro Heads of Families in 1830 and Carter G. Woodson's work family. Okay, now let's continue here. And then it says here, his son Frank became a Methodist preacher. Edward was what? Elected to Congress. So when we go to the dummy one, this is the dummy one, Edward Stanley, boom, there he is. That's the image you get. Why? Because the cover story was that you were a slave, chattel slavery with no freedoms. You weren't in a power position. But so the people, this is the people that Frank Zanu thinks were the Americans in charge. But we just heard current people giving their family stories that their grandparents and great-grandparents talk about them being manufactured with no parents. So they don't have any records. So here's a real life example of a hijack. Fabius Stanley. And now remember his daughter, let's go back here, the daughter, Elizabeth, no, wait a minute, hold on a second here, Elizabeth, John Carruthers, Elizabeth here, her husband, is Walter Keith Armistead, right? Right there. Okay? Now, we go here, we go to the duplicate and mention him. Father-in-law General Walter Keith Armistead, that's the image you get. Army Corps of Engineers, by the way. But we know JC was listening to Free Negro Heads of Families in 1830. Thanks to Carter G. Woodson. But they recognized that he was a so quote unquote Negro, but the story you get, there's a different version of the same of because they made two of them. The one for us, for the spell, step under the spell, is the slave. And the barber, not the lawyer, not the one who graduated from Princeton, not the congressman, but the barbershop owner, who somehow got so rich that he had multiple plantations. See, this is what they do, family. This is what they do. And we caught a real live example of it. A duplicate copy of the same person, but to have one to go with the spell, the cover story, because you can't have in your mind that during that time the people who were running things in control looked like us. You see the trick bag? We're going to have to wake up, family, because the trick bag, the spell, where has that gotten you? Made you a permanent underclass where under Biden and Kamala, they brought in millions upon millions of illegal immigrants to replace you. They get everything. That's why they got to get rid of us. Because then the story can take some life. Get rid of the evidence. See, the sorcerers couldn't get to everything now. They didn't cover all bases. This is an example of the loopholes that we can get in to expose what's really going on here. So Africans are off the table. They don't even deserve to have a conversation with you, family. If anything, they come take our advice. We can give them advice. This is what you should be doing. First thing, you go back home and you don't allow Chinese to come in to do your babies like that. It's the first fucking thing. Do the basics. So we can end it there, family. Appreciate everyone coming in. And again, I apologize for the technical issues before, but we got it straightened out there. That one patent there, Marlon, for let me pull it up again, for JC was 100 acres. Let me show it again here, right here. Yeah, this one was 100 acres there. This one here, right? Can you see that? Right there. 124th, 1818. And that's the entry number. Entered, this is the date he entered. It was April 14th, 1818. And it's recorded in book number 132, page number 234, which would be located in the Craven County, North Carolina property records. And the Craven County Courthouse will have a division for land records, and this is where this would be. So any descendant of J.C. Stanley, it's your duty to confirm, to make sure he didn't sell it or no Stanley heir sold it, because you can go after this here. Right? But now think how brilliant the plan was, the whole U African deal, family, because think about it. If they came up with this plan to separate us mentally, and they get you to under that spell that well yeah, I'm an African. Then you'll never know about any of this. They can continue to benefit off your land and off the minerals of your land and gain great wealth. That's what's been happening over the last 100 years, right? So, but those, we all go through these phases because we're all victims of the miseducation, right? Um, but you gotta have to really look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, wait a minute, how has this benefited me? How has it benefited my family with the African situation? How has that benefited us? Do we have an inheritance over there? It hasn't been. Ask yourself that question and find and make a list. Okay, how has it benefited me and my children? Because Africans were coming over here, especially during Kamala, the last 4 years. Oh my, they had it made, getting free money, free health care, free education, houses, money, all of this good stuff. They benefit coming over here trying to replace us. They benefit greatly. But how have you benefited the other way around? You haven't. So you better stop it, because remember, this is recent now. So remember, the whole Operation Alex Haley is a recent deal. Our grandparents weren't under this African deal because they knew they weren't Africans. That weren't even so that was nowhere in their radar system, right? So remember, let's see. In 2020, February, before the whole pandemic happened, I was in New York, and I was the one who pulled the Corlander complaint against Alex Haley. Right? For what? Now we know this is the largest. Remember, that television series Roots was the largest, most successful TV miniseries in history to date, family. And you remember those days in '78. Many of us who was around at that time, we remember that. That was taught in school. They weren't promoting all that crap, right? Operation Alex Haley. So he was sued by, and this is the actual complaint I pulled when I went down to the Manhattan County Southern District Federal Court. Pulled the record. Pulled the complaint he filed. It's a amended complaint. And Haley, he sued Haley. He sued the publishing house and ABC Television for broadcasting the miniseries for copyright infringement. And I also pulled Alex Haley's attorney's answer to Mr. Corlander's complaint. So, hold on. But we were taught that, oh yeah, Alex Haley's doing his Roots and all this crap. Alex Haley, his genealogy is out there for anybody to do. Alex Haley has no connection to Africa. He's Scottish on his father's side, American on his mother's side. Nothing to do with Africa. But they made money off of this, right? And so, but they stole. He was basically Mr. Corlander wrote a fiction work called The African. That's where Alex Haley got the idea. It basically stole his story, and he was sued for what? Okay. We here. These are the parties. So we see here. Let's blow this up here. We clearly see Harold Corlander, Crown Publishers, Inc. are the plaintiffs against who? Alex Haley, Doubleday Company Publishing, and ABC, American Broadcasting Companies, and Dell Publishing. These are the defendants. Right? So we get down here. right here. It says here, prior to November 1967, plaintiff Corlander, who then was and ever since has been a citizen of the United States, created and wrote an original novel entitled The African. This book contains a large amount of material wholly original with plaintiff Corlander and is copyrightable subject matter under the laws of the United States. Here it is. The Register of Copyrights, a certificate of registration dated and identified as follows. December 7, 1967. There's the number there. And so basically it was copyright infringement, family. Had nothing to do with how Alex Haley going to do his find his long lost family members in Africa. But this was a grand spell that had to be thrown upon us. In 1978, our grandparents and great grandparents didn't have to deal with any of this type of sorcery because they had their land. So the focus at that time was trying to disconnect them from their land. After that all happened, then they had to shift to other folks with education. What the children had to be, what they had to put into their minds. And this how all this stuff happened, family. It's not reality. So I'll be maybe later this week or next week I'll give another presentation and we'll get into real stuff here. Okay, so yep, Andrew Jackson Smitherman and Warrior Renty. Yep, I did a presentation on that a few years ago. I know, matter of fact, I know the descendant of Warrior Renty. And he's in Oklahoma. Fortunately, he still gets the benefit and still has a lot of his ancestral lands that he's benefiting from there. So it's good for him. But yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Mr. Lawson there. But yeah, have a great night there, family. I know it's getting late there. I believe it's a national holiday there for many of you. But we will end it here tonight. And thanks again. And we'll meet again soon. Take care.